Here we go. Week 4 preview show. Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball presented by FanDuel and the Believe Network of Podcasts. I'm Dan Vespers. Please like, rate, subscribe, follow on social media at Dan Vespers. Let's dive straight in. We're talking injuries first as we set the week in motion. Why do we do injuries first? Well, some of you are in weekly leagues. This would apply to you perhaps a little bit more than everybody else, but I do think it's a nice way to kind of get our bearings reset for the week ahead. And then you can plot out what you might need to shift. We're just going to pivot this week now and start looking at, for a while, I was looking at the pre-rank top 150, 200, or whatever. Now we're going to switch over to what guys are actually ranked. And we're just going to go through and update you on anybody that has a significant or even mildly significant injury and what that means for them going forward. Kawhi Leonard is dealing with a sprained ankle. He is a sit. If you're in a weekly league, I'll give you a weekly answer to all of these guys, but also just an update. Austin Reeves is dealing with that groin soreness. He's questionable for the Lakers ball game in Charlotte? Question mark? Yeah, that's where they're at. That's coming up later tonight. We should get an update on him before that ball game. It's a 4-game week for the Lakers. I think you'll see Reeves for at least 3 of those. And obviously, if he's in for this one, then you're good to go. Steph Curry is expected back for the Warriors on Tuesday. He's been sick. He's got the snuffles. It's probably a little bit worse than that, but that's a 4-game week for the Warriors as well. So again, even if he misses Tuesday, they play on Wednesday. You'll still get, I would think, 3 at the absolute worst. So Steph is in a good spot this week as well. LaMelo Ball out until we hear otherwise. Ankle impingement. It's the same crap that it's always been. You should have never drafted him, but if you did, now you're stuck with it. Bench him until he's actually out there and playing again. Jamal Murray, we'll throw this one up on the screen. Calf stuff. It's been calf tightness, so I think they'll probably be somewhat careful with him. If you're dealing with this on a weekly basis, you probably sit Jamal Murray this week. It's just a 3-game week, so if they miss tomorrow, he's down to 2, and it's a Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back before a very light second half of this week. They only have 1 game over the final 4 days. So weekly leaguers, you probably bench him. Head-to-head, everydayers, just keep an eye on Jamal Murray. Walker Kessler obviously out for the year, so we don't need to talk about him more than this one time. Into the next page of names. Benedict Mathurin is a no. Anthony Davis is questionable. He might even play as soon as tonight. They go every other day. Milwaukee, Phoenix, Clippers, Portland actually starts at 5-7 for the Mavs on Sunday of this week. But again, like AD was questionable on Saturday. He didn't play. I think they figured they could beat Washington without him. They did. Took a lot, but they did. Today, they're going to need him. Going up against Giannis, Miles Turner, you ain't winning that game without Anthony Davis. So I expect him to play if he's really close, which it sounds like he was. And so they just bought him another 48 hours after a matchup with the tanking team. I think you get Anthony Davis tonight, and I think that means you can play him all week. Jalen Johnson, he was questionable, I should say. Hawks have a 4-game week. I think you're going to get at least 3 out of him. So even if Johnson is out tonight in Los Angeles, they're playing the Clippers. I think he'll play the other 3 games this week. And frankly, even 2 would be enough to start Jalen in a weekly league. So keep an eye on that one. What's the thing that, it's a quad contusion. Forgot for a minute exactly what he was dealing with. Aaron Gordon, I think that this was sort of a rest day. They listed it as hamstring, but he sat out the second half of a back-to-back. I don't believe the Nuggets had a back-to-back on the season to that point. So that was the first time we got a back-to-back data point for AG. He only played 24 minutes in the game before it, so I'm a little bit worried about Aaron Gordon. I don't want to tell you guys the wrong thing and then lead you completely astray. It's not entirely clear. Denver, as we just talked about with Jamal Murray, they're in Sacramento and then down to LA for a back-to-back. I would think you get 2 games out of Gordon this week max because of the back-to-back. So he's probably a bench guy in weekly formats. And then in daily formats, just make sure that this isn't a lingering thing and they're just being a little bit careful. Josh Giddey's questionable. This is not a great scheduling week for Chicago. They play today, Wednesday, and then they're off all the way until Sunday after that. So if Giddey's out for this one, you're getting a 2-game week max, possibly only 1. Weekly leaguers are going to be stuck with their you-know-what's in their hand. If he gets ruled out for this San Antonio game, something's buzzing. Oh, it's outside. Great. More outside buzzing. Fantastic. It sounded like a phone on a ledge, but my phone is right here and it's not buzzing. Chicago So if Giddey gets ruled in, then everything gets a little bit simpler. If Giddey gets ruled out, you have to make this call on whether you think he's going to play on Wednesday. It's an ankle sprain. Guys usually can make it through those. Are not usually too bad. I would lean towards playing him because he's been really good lately, but man, that one could come back and bite us. Ugh. Ouchie. Miles Bridges, back spasms. I think I would do with him whatever today dictates. If he's out, I think I would bench him. If he's in, I think I would play him this week for weekly formats. Back stuff is weird. They've had a really light schedule, so hopefully he just gets ruled back in for this Lakers game, and then you don't have to worry about it. But, anything is possible. And you're like, Dan, he and Giddey are ranked almost the same. Why would you be so much higher on Giddey? Because Josh is ranked next to Miles Bridges because his turnovers are on the high side. Otherwise, he's been far superior. Bam Adebayo has already been ruled out, so you got to bench him in weekly formats. He's dealing with that toe issue. Hopefully, we get a good report at some point in the next few ball games, but it's only a 3-game week, so you're looking at 2 seemingly max right now. That's not great. Jalen Suggs, we know he's going to sit back-to-backs. This is part of a back-to-back. He's resting today. I expect him to play in the other 3 games this week, so he's a go for weekly leaguers, and everything's going kind of according to plan. Joel Embiid does not have a back-to-back this week, but they only have a 2-game week. So probably a bench, honestly. I know that that's going to hurt to hear, but Embiid at not playing maximum minutes, I don't know that you need to get him in there, and anything could knock him out of a ball game. If you're looking at the opposition for Philly, it's Boston to Detroit. So it seems like he's going to want to play in those games. Probably you do get 2 games out of Embiid, but when 2 is the best possible answer, I think I would play it safe. Daniel Gafford is questionable. That same ankle thing that he tried to play through in their last ball game might keep him out of this one. But if Anthony Davis is back, it wouldn't hurt you that much to sit Gafford for a day in a games cap format. Weekly leaguers, I think you probably play him because it doesn't sound like Derek Lively is all that close. And I think you probably get Gafford and AD playing side by side for a solid 8 to 10 minutes a game. And then he'll be the backup center for another 8 to 10 minutes a game. So I think Daniel still can get 20 even after Anthony Davis comes back. And that makes him playable in weekly formats. The only issue is, what if he gets ruled out with the ankle thing? Then you probably bench him in weekly leagues. I'm not even going to talk about Matisse Thybulle or Kevin Porter Jr., mostly because Thybulle's not relevant and KPJ's still out for a few more weeks. Let's push into the hundreds. Isaiah Stewart is a no. He's out. It was a pretty nasty ankle tweak on Stewart. He's getting ruled out. He got ruled out pretty early for their last one. Obviously, if he comes back, I'm going to end up feeling like an idiot. But Detroit has a front-loaded schedule, so if he misses today, then you're, again, getting 2 games max out of a fill-in guy, or Tobias Harris could resurface as well. Aaron Wiggins, I think you have to bench him also. OKC, only a 3-game week. We're not going to get any news on him before tomorrow, probably. So keep him on your bench for now. Rolling quickly here through Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I actually lost track of that. Was a back issue, huh? All right, well, I think I would go the mirror mode on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. If he's out today, you bench him for the week. If he's in today, you start him for the week. It's a 4-gamer for Atlanta, and it's front-loaded, though. So, if he's out, then there's a sort of a higher probability that he's out for another one because they go Wednesday, Thursday, in addition to today. It's a good schedule to start the week for the Hawks, so hopefully he's in there. Oh, I forgot to color code this. This was actually a part of a 5 and 7 for Atlanta that I overlooked on my graph. I missed it. My eyes. The goggles do nothing. So yeah, just hope for good news on Alexander Walker going into tonight's ball game. As we continue to stroll, you don't care about Drew Smith, do you? You don't. Let's keep going a little farther. We're almost out of it. Tobias Harris, no, you're not going to start him unless you get some sort of good news. Obi Toppin's out forever. Luke Cornett is not relevant. Aaron Nesmith is an interesting one. Here he is down at 175 because that field goal percent. We're not going to get a report on him probably until tomorrow, and it's a 3-game week. So weekly leaguers, you bench him. Daily leaguers, you obviously can wait and find out more. Jalen Green is probably going to be out for a little bit, so keep him on your benches as well. And I don't know that there's anybody we need to talk about in the 176 to 200 range. What's this Derek Lively update? Anything? No, he's still doubtful. That's what I figured. Everybody in here, you're barely playing these guys anyway. Pascal Siakam, we got 59% free throw shooting. We got to get that squared away. He's a game time call, huh? Oh, rested. Yeah, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. That doesn't count. That's your 10-minute injury report on everything that happened over the weekend. Quick reminder, everybody, to please hit that subscribe button. This weekly preview show, I know, is not the most popular one because it does apply more to weekly leaguers. But hopefully we can do a segment now that is more appealing to you daily leaguers, and that's the streaming board. But before we get to that, quick reminder also, this show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're thinking about getting down on, I don't know, maybe a little bit of action tonight, a lot of games are off the board because we've got all this injury crap floating around. But here's a fun one, maybe. I don't know. San Antonio, 4.5-point road favorites at Chicago while we wait on the Josh Giddey news. We think that could be a fun ball game. Clippers laying 5 at home. They've been terrible over the Atlanta Hawks, who may or may not be without half of their team. It's everything waiting on injury for all these guys. Any of these games don't have a big injury. Cavs, 7.5-point favorites on the road at Miami. I don't think we're waiting on any injury news there. What do you guys think happens in that one? Total of 247.5. Man, that's a lot of puntos. Also, if you guys want to help keep everything for free, sign up for a 99-cent YouTube membership or sign up for a 99-cent Patreon membership. YouTubers, you're watching it right here. I think it's on your screen someplace. I still don't really know, but it's 99 cents. You're going to get a subscriber pod when I record a show with my son, my 9-year-old son, or he'll be 9 in 2 days. It's pretty damn soon. I'm calling him 9. I'm rounding up. We're going to talk about life, Little League, his friends, running for third grade student council. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys enjoy it as well. It's a thing you will actually get for your membership as opposed to, again, just knowing that you're helping keep all of this fantasy stuff free for everybody forever and ever and ever. Find me on Twitter at Dan Besbris. Again, like and subscribe, but check out the free Google Sheet because that's the next thing we're going to put up on this screen for you guys. Here comes the button pushing. Where's the screen? There it is. Here's the injury replacement board. We're going to do a longer show on this likely tomorrow. We do Tuesday injury board, but these are all the guys that are stepping up in the absence of guys that are out. So take a good gander at those. But more importantly this week, those that are watching a weekly show like this, you're probably looking for the streaming board. And here's the streaming board for week 4. We will scroll slightly to the right. We will go to full screen mode. I will zoom out just a little bit. That was too far. And now you can see what's going on this week. So you've got some teams that have pretty good schedules to start the week, but I actually think it's more useful to start this part of our discussion by looking at the teams that have bad schedules to start the week, because you got to know where your starting point is. And your starting point is finding players who are not that helpful at the beginning of the week. And those teams are color-coded in either brown, which is, you'll see Brooklyn brown, Houston is in brown, or bright red, the Philadelphia 76ers. Start with bright red. Philly's got a 2-game week. They're the only team in the NBA that plays twice this week. They go Tuesday and Friday, which, I mean, fine, whatever. Wednesday is a bit of an overload day. I guess you dodge that with Philly. But if you have anyone on the Sixers that's not really dunking right now, and you might, like an Andre Drummond or a Trendon Watford, those guys probably in unlimited games formats can get cast into the ocean because there are a lot of teams that have 3 games the first 4 days this week. Those teams I didn't bother to color code because a few of them show up very easily on your screen anyway. Atlanta goes Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Again, the Wednesday part is a possible overload day, so consider that. Cleveland, same story, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. There is one team, Utah, that goes back-to-back to start the week, and then they play on Thursday, dodging the overload day. So after the Jazz are coming off a pretty bad scheduling week last week, they now segue into a good one this week. So the 4 teams that we just talked about up at the top of the board here as I scroll, Atlanta and Cleveland. I got to scroll out a little bit. I can't see crap up this close. Atlanta, Cleveland go 3 times in 4 days to start the week. Then you got a lot of these teams in the middle pack of the alphabet that don't. And then towards the back end, Phoenix goes 3 and 4 to start the week. And Utah has the best one because they go back-to-back and 3 games in 4 nights to start the week. Okay, so the other teams that have a bad schedule, we mentioned Brooklyn. They go Tuesday, 1 game in 4 days. Houston goes Wednesday. That might actually be the worst schedule of anybody to start the week because they don't play Monday or Tuesday. So who are the guys that are potentially cuttable? On Brooklyn, it's basically everyone. Not Michael Porter Jr., probably not Nick Claxton. I guess you're squatting on Cam Thomas, but everybody else on the Nets, you can punt with a bad schedule to start the week. The Rockets, this is unfortunately, Reed Shepherd is coming off a couple of pretty good ball games, but Reed Shepherd, Steven Adams, probably the only guys that are fringy enough that you could punt them and look for somebody who's playing 3 times in those 4 days. And then Philly, we already talked about. But now, instead, we can get into a little bit who are the guys that you maybe should be adding to start the week. Who are the streamers on, say, Utah that are not on a ton of rosters that go 3 games in 4 nights? Svi Mikhailiuk, oddly enough, is the name that pops to mind. He hasn't been good by any stretch, but he's playing 27, 28 minutes a ball game. He's averaging 14 points, 3 boards, and 3 threes a game. If you get 3 of those and you get 40 points and 9 3-pointers and 10 rebounds and 4 or 5 assists and a steal, that's still a lot more than you're going to get out of most guys with 1 or 2 games during that span. It's possible that a 2-gamer might beat a 3-gamer in a head-to-head matchup, but it has to be a pretty good sized gap because Svi, for instance, over his last week is around top 140. 3 games of top 140. You got to look for somebody who's like a top 75 kind of guy sitting on the wire to get 2 games out of them to beat Svi's 3. There aren't that many other great streaming names on the Jazz. I would have said Taylor Hendricks, but he's questionable for this one. I might have said Ace Bailey, but he's really not playing all that much. If you're looking for just like a minutes played situation, Isaiah Collier is on some wires. He's very assists and turnovers heavy, but he's a guy you could get 3 games in 4 nights out of. And I don't think I would go much farther down the board with Utah. Atlanta's an interesting one because half their team is out right now. Guys that are on the wire that might be streamable for the Hawks would be Zachary Reese-Shea, Mo Gay, Keaton Wallace, Luke Kennard is floating around out there. Again, you have to know who's in and who's out, and it's going to change probably over the first 3 games this week. But again, at least those are options that you could consider. Cleveland, crap, I don't know if Cleveland has almost anybody. I guess Jalen Tyson is probably still on wires, despite the fact that he's actually been pretty good. Especially over the last week, he's been a 2nd rounder in 3 ball games. But Tyson's the one that you see on waivers. No one else really on the Cavs is on the waiver wire because Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, DeAndre Hunter, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, these guys are all on rosters. Maybe Sam Merrill is on your wire. You could get a 3-point barrage out of him in those 3 games. And then the other team that we mentioned, I think, was Phoenix, right? Yeah, Phoenix. They've got some options, especially with Jalen Green going back out. Your streaming options, if you were going to look at the Suns, would be Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, Colin Gillespie, Ryan Dunn. A lot of those guys are rostered, but maybe not all of them. Dunn being my least favorite of the names that we just listed off. So those are guys that you could use to start the week, but then you want to plot out the rest of the week. This gets you, that initial move, moves you off of somebody who had 1 game the first 4 days and moves you onto somebody who has 3 games the first 4 days. Great. You're a +2 over those first 4 days of the week with just 1 roster move. What happens to these teams at the end of that? Well, Atlanta only has 1 game over the final 3 days. Cleveland only has 1 game over the final 3 days. Phoenix, 1 game over the final 3 days. Utah, 1 game over the final 3 days, because otherwise they'd be a 5-game week, meaning that on Friday, you probably want to look for someone that at least has 2 games the rest of the week, or you could look for the back-to-back and make another move on Sunday, which would be sort of like your 3 moves in a week. You go Monday, Friday, Sunday, leaving you 1 move to attack someone that maybe isn't a streamer, a player that you think might have rest of season appeal or some sort of bigger upside, an injury replacement that's going to last 3, 4, 5 weeks, something along those lines. You don't want to use up all your moves on streams still this early in the season when interesting players are still popping up. So the teams that have a back-to-back Friday and Saturday are the Charlotte Hornets at Milwaukee. They host the Thunder. Lakers have a road back-to-back in New Orleans and in Milwaukee. Milwaukee, oddly, has a back-to-back there as well. Charlotte and LA. Minnesota has a Sacramento-Denver back-to-back. And those are your choices there. 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that have the Friday, Saturday back-to-back. I'm not going to give you the streamers for those because injuries are going to happen between today and Friday. But then if you're pivoting off of those on Sunday, my preference would be Chicago, Dallas, or New Orleans. Those 3 teams start a 5-game in 7-day stretch on Sunday of this week, meaning that if you find a New Orleans streamer or a Dallas or a Chicago streamer, you shouldn't have to do anything with that particular roster slot until the following Sunday, because they're just going to play all the damn time. And you're really not going to do any better. I know you're like, well, I could play the back-to-back and then I could pick somebody else up on Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, you're using a move, but you're still going to probably get 3 games out of the next 5 days on that particular guy. And having a 5 and 7 dude allows you, if you wanted to stream a second roster spot on your team. I think that's all the. Oh, no, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about. So you might also find yourself with somebody that has a dumb schedule partway through the week. Okay, so maybe you don't have a Brooklyn, a Houston, a Philadelphia to start the week, the teams that have a bad Monday through Thursday schedule. Maybe you have somebody that has a bad elsewhere. These are the teams that have, I'm usually looking for 3 days off at some point in the middle of the week. I don't know how Chicago lost their color coding. I must have hit a button and that got punted out of the way. But Boston, Chicago, Minnesota, and Washington, all 4 of those teams have a 3-day break at some point this week. We can start up at the top. Boston goes back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. Then they only have 1 game the rest of this week. Also, they only have 1 game the first 4 days next week. So the Celtics have 2 games over 8 days starting on Thursday. So if you have any fringy Celtics, Thursday is the day you want to get the hell off of that. Look for anybody in the NBA that has 3 and 4 to finish the... Oh, there's nobody. That's a pisser. Nobody has 3 games and 4 nights to finish the week. That's kind of interesting. Chicago, similar thing. They've got the 3-day break, so you could probably look for a Thursday, Saturday team. Are there any of those? Yeah. Cleveland is a Thursday, Saturday team. Indiana is a Thursday, Saturday team. And Toronto is a Thursday, Saturday team. And then you use another move on Sunday because you were able to late till later in the week. Same story with Washington. Same story with Chicago. All 3 of those teams are off Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The only one that's different is Minnesota. Minnesota's off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is a weird one. And then they have a back-to-back right on the tail end of that. So if you're going to do something with a fringy Timberwolf, and I don't even know who that would be right this second, you would look for somebody that goes 2 times. Preferably, does anybody go Tuesday, Thursday? No. Yeah, Indiana. Indiana goes Tuesday, Thursday. And Toronto goes Tuesday, Thursday. So those are possibilities. It also avoids the Wednesday potential overload. If you're not overloaded on Wednesday, there are a lot of teams that play twice between Tuesday and Thursday. It's like a solid half of the NBA. So you do not need me to go through every streaming name on the board. But those are the other teams that have weird schedules this week where they have 3 days off at some point. You can usually jam in 2 games during the 3-day break that your team had. So Boston fringy guys, Chicago fringy guys, Washington fringy guys, and Minnesota are the other ones. So those teams are color-coded in sort of like a light brown, dark yellow over on the left side. If you guys wanted to jump into that free Google Sheet and check it out and use the streaming calendar to your advantage. Now we're officially done. There was that extra little 3 minutes there. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is a weekly preview show for week 4 at Dan Besbris over on Twitter. I got a lot of stuff to do on social as this day unfurls. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but set those lineups. Let's keep winning. Let's keep making the good moves. Let's stream properly and not too much here at the beginning of the year. We don't want to miss out on anything really juicy that pops up because it is still happening. At Dan Besbris is the Twitter handle. Last name is Besbris, if you haven't figured that out by now. Old Man Squad is another one on Twitter. If you want to follow that, that's the network feed. And please consider, if you've got 99 cents, jump in somewhere. YouTube member, Patreon member. Seems like they both take about the same cut for themselves while I continue to build out all of this stuff and try to keep it free for everybody forever. Thanks again to FanDuel, who I think we talked about at some point. I don't remember when we talked about him, but we did in the middle of the show. I think it was in between, right? We did injuries and then we did our ad read. We're done for the day on pods. I'll see you guys over on social. I'm Dan, I'm out.